One of our Patreon supporters was just talking to me about how they ended up in a mess of a situation. A lot of people ask themselves, how do you end up in a mess of a situation? And they try to look back and see what's happened. What I do is talk to her about what has led up to it further and further back than she might have wanted to look, and how lack of free will can lead to the rising of patterns of behavior, which then lead to certain actions, which lead to other actions, which end up in you ending up in a situation where you're screwed. So enjoy. What I wanted to say is that if you don't have free will, but you want to make a change, then how is it that you can make a change if you don't have free will? And what I'm suggesting is that yes, you have agency, but the agency is a choice that you're making based upon your understanding of what the consequences will be if you continue that behavior. And you have to, like I said, be ready to, number one, you've got to notice that that's what's happening. And number two, you've got to be ready to listen to new information that could change your trajectory so that you don't end up where you now realize you're going to end up if you keep making a certain negative choice. So you've already done that in your life, for example. Like, let's say, in the past when, let's just say anyone in general, right? Like you have an eating problem, let's just say, and you don't realize you have it. First, you have to realize that you have this issue, and it might be the amount that you eat, it might be that you're not exercising, it might be the wrong types of food. Whatever the issue is, you recognize it. And then you say, well, if I continue down this path, I've noticed that I've grown to this size, or I'm getting medical problems, or health problems, or alienating my children, or I don't have enough exercise or energy to sleep, whatever it is, right? And you think, okay, I can see now where the trajectory is heading. I want to change that trajectory. The thing is, why do you want to change that trajectory? You don't choose to want to change it, is what I'm saying. That's where there's no free will. If you want to change it, the want is something that you're recognizing that you have. You have this want. You're like, oh, okay, I have this want to change the trajectory that I'm on, which I can now see, which I didn't choose to now see. It somehow is now available. 1 second. Anyway, so we were saying that you were on a path, the want comes. I don't remember what we were saying. But yes, it's the same thing. You recognize a pattern of behavior that is leading to you making choices. The choices carry a risk. The risk has a high consequence if the risk metamorphosizes into reality, right? So then the consequence is so huge that you don't want to take the risk. Why? Because you have to recognize that taking the risk and getting away with it trains your brain to continue taking the risk. Now, if the risk is 1% and you do it 100 times, well then, I mean, it's not exactly this case, but you're looking at close to 100%. That's not true. It's about above 70% chance of paying the consequence. So you've got to recognize your pattern of behavior, and then you've got to figure out, well, how do you even recognize that pattern of behavior? First, you've got to ask yourself, do I have a pattern of behavior? And then that's when you can talk to AI or talk to a counselor or someone and say, what is my pattern of behavior? And you've got to abstract it. That's also hard. So the pattern of behavior is, okay, when confronted with a difficult situation, I'll take the easy way out, even if the easy way is breaking a rule. And then you say, okay, well, if that's your pattern of behavior, then what's going to happen if you continually break the rule? Well, the first year, 2 years, 3 years, you might think, well, there was nothing wrong with it. Oh, someone might think, there's nothing wrong with going 10 Ks over the speed limit. Okay, so you go 10 Ks over the speed limit, you get booked, you don't care, you get, you keep going. What happens one day that as I know, because I'm old enough, I've seen this happen, where someone jumps in front of the car because they're on drugs, right? And you're going 10 Ks over the speed limit. Now, it's not actually your fault in the sense that the other person's on drugs and they've just wandered and ran out. Actually, I've seen it because they've been spooked and they're on ice or something and they just run out, and you hit them, right? And then they're in hospital or they die. You go to jail. So this has happened. I know someone where something like this happened. It wasn't actually, in a way, their fault, but they ended up in jail. you lose everything. You lose your bank accounts, you lose your girlfriend, you lose your job, you lose your credibility, and in your head you're like, oh, why did I make that choice to go 10% over the speed limit? Well, that's the wrong question. The question is, why is it okay in my mind to bend rules in general? How did I get into this pattern of behavior? So it's not one specific incident that led you to this, it's the pattern of behavior that led you to this. So the pattern of behavior would have started with something else. It might have been jaywalking, or like the light says don't walk, but you cross. I don't know. I mean, anyway, have I said too much?
Here we go.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, why did, like, and I actually had to talk to myself. I'm like, when Gabby said these things, why did it upset me? And I realized that because I had full accountability and responsibility of what would happen, and I made the poor choice. And then eventually what I was expecting is, oh, Helen, it's okay. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But then I realized that I was just giving myself a false comfort or a false hope. And I only know I was doing that because you said I'd do that. And that's when I realized, and I think I was 100% right on the fact that what I was doing was wrong. And then so when we came into this topic, I thought, yeah, it's 100% my fault and I'm 100% to blame. The only thing is that you just got to know moving forward to make the better choice. And the only problem is that because I've been doing these dodgy things for a long time, you actually would have never known that it was like, you would have not known what would have been the right choice, as sad as that is. And it's sad because I could have known that later, or by 25, or by another age, but
There's a lot of things going on
yeah,
there.
it's just,
Like, yes, because you're transitioning early from being a child to an adult, and the child mentality is, why am I getting blamed? Especially like a parent tells a child you shouldn't have done something, and the child says, oh, why is it my fault? It's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. Blah blah blah. And that can continue to adulthood for a number of people. But yes, the acknowledgement that what have I done wrong is actually a very powerful statement, because it's then you're actually taking control of the situation and saying, what could I have done differently so that I would not end up in this situation? And as you say, it's a pattern of behavior. So it's when one recognizes that it's, yes, we have agency, yes, we have the ability to make choices, but they're not free. They're bounded. And they're bounded by many things. Like, for example, it might not come to our mind to do certain things, but that's because we've already been engaged in a pattern of behavior for so long that we don't even recognize what's outside of that domain that could form an answer or solution to the problem. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. And then I also think, though, that if I never stopped and thought about it, I would have never came to this point in time. But if anything as well, thank you, Gabby.
Well, no, thank you. It's a massive deal because almost nobody listens, and even less body listens when they're in their 20s. I know myself, I would never listen to anyone, and I now recognize that maybe, some people say, there's this common saying, we learn from our mistakes. But I think that's not actually precise. It's not correct. I would say we need to learn, we make mistakes. So it's not that we learn from our mistakes, it's in order to learn, we make mistakes. But I think one of the mistakes that we make is the mistake of not recognizing that we can learn from the mistakes of others. And it's very easy to say it, but to actually comprehend what that means, it's like, how do you deeply get engrossed in someone's story to the point where you can completely see how they got to this point, which could have taken 15 years, but you can hear it in 10, 15 minutes, right?
Minutes, yeah.
And then understand it so deeply that then you can actually abstract from it the elements that then you can apply to your own life and think, how do I save myself 15 years of having to go through hell, and I can stop that now and have a completely different future. And why does someone even come to that realization? Like, it's so difficult. And I think it depends on one's personality. I know that, like, for me, I was so angry and so furious that my life was destroyed over something that I kept saying was not true. But it took 2 years of being in hell to then recognize, okay, yes, it's not true. And I still say it's not true. And I've told the, people officially in all official capacity that wasn't true what happened, most of it. But it's the question then is, what did I do that led
Make
me?
it look true.
Yes, number one, to make it so I didn't even understand what perception was. So how do you? What was I doing that, number one, led to me being perceived to be in such a way, but also what did I do to piss people off enough to make them want to make up false testimonies about me that ended up leading me into being accused of something that was false.
Yeah.
But also people suffered, even though it wasn't directly from me. They tied it back to me in ways that some were true and some were not true. But people suffered, right? The thing is, even though I was doing everything with full intent to help those people, they still suffered, right? But then, of course, the story was twisted so that it looked like I was trying to make them suffer for my own purpose or something, which was, well, when we say my own purpose, I wanted them to succeed so that they would be grateful to me, so that I could have people in my life who felt gratitude towards me. So it was a very childish way to try and compensate for the abuse that happened at school. That's a very long. So you still have to take accountability, but then they recognize, okay. So therefore, my weakness was that I was bound by the need for others to have eternal gratitude towards me. And so that was my weakness. And I said, okay, well then how do I get past that? What are my patterns of behavior that lead to that? What can I substitute that with, so that I have something healthier which provides me more gratitude, more satisfaction in life? One of those things I found was mathematics, and ironically, it's led me down a path where people are giving me all of this gratitude and sense of wonder in what I have thus far achieved in the mathematics world. Very small thing, but that's not even the reason I was doing it. And so it doesn't drive me to continue the maths. So it's ironic that I ended up getting what I wanted originally, even though now I don't want it. I don't know. Have I gone off topic?
No. You're making a good point. Yeah, it's just I didn't realize that life was like this. Like, I didn't realize that every small move you make impacts you dramatically. Like, going an opposite way just for a car park. Like, can you admit, Gabs, if you were 25, would you think that would have not been a big deal at all?
Of course. And if someone told me don't, just like if someone said to me, don't go the wrong way in a car park just to get a car space, I would have told them to get effed. I would have said, mate, I need the car space. Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. But it's exactly that attitude that even though you abstract it, it's got nothing to do with the car space. It's the thinking that you can get what you want by bypassing a rule that you don't think is important. So it's not that you are deliberately breaking a rule. It's that you think that this rule is stupid. So why am I listening to it? There's no one here. The car park is right next to me. Why should I go all the way around the car park when I can just go in? And a lot of people would think that. But exactly what I'm saying. It's the same as taking extra sugar with your tea, or, eating extra fatty foods when you didn't have to, or not sleeping early enough. It's all these tiny choices that over time allow your mind to think that it's okay to take the next small leap. And it might take 2 or 3 or 4, it might take 10 years to the point where you're now smoking full time and you're overweight and you've got diabetes, and you don't even know how this all started. But it would have started years before with tiny steps. Because that's what I was saying about the lack of free will. It's that humans fall into patterns of behavior, so you can extract from their behavior the patterns that are underlying or engineering that behavior. So you can figure out roughly, like algorithmically, what are people going to likely do or not do, and then try and predict that. I mean, that's why you have Facebook is so successful and the others, because humans are so algorithmic that AI can easily track what humans are going to watch, what they would likely want to watch. And that's what I mean about the lack of free will in that sense. Like, you might choose to watch something, but it's not free. Like, it wasn't like everything that's watchable has an equal chance of being watched by you. Yeah, there are certain things you're going to want to watch more than others. And that want is something that you don't recognize. You don't choose to have that want, right? The want comes, and then you're like, I want this. But you don't know why you actually want it. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting chat.